the first segment that we will talk about is none other than conference expansion, and this report, rumor, whatever you want to call it, about the ACC exploring new revenue structures that would possibly end the lawsuits between the ACC, Florida State, and Clemson. So it sounds like they're trying to explore different revenue models that would satisfy both Florida State and Clemson and keep them inside the conference. The ACC presidents met last week in Charlotte. They talked about it then. They talked about it on their weekly call this week as well. Discussions are conceptual at this point, which is a fancy way of saying they have no idea what they're going to do, in my opinion. But they are talking about different avenues and possibly creating separate sources of revenue that could be divvied up based on media analytics, eyes on the screen, that type of stuff, which would obviously favor brands like Clemson and Florida State. Also changing the grant of rights date from 2036 to a sooner date. And then all of this comes on the back of, obviously, February. ESPN has to make the decision on whether they are going to, extend the deal with the ACC. If they didn't, that would end the deal in 2027 instead of going through 2036. So big decision there coming for ESPN. I'm sure this is somewhat motivated by that. But what are your thoughts on all this conference expansion news, this ACC settlement news coming out mid-season? I know we don't like to cover it a whole lot on this channel, but I figured it was at least worth a topic of conversation. Do you think there's any real traction that's going to happen with these settlement talks? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical. I think the schools have gone through so much litigation, in both the ACC and the two schools have gone through so much litigation at this point that it's like, I don't know how much, is how much there is to fix that can be fixed at this point in terms of like the relations between the two, the conference and those two schools. And I think the difficulty is whatever revenue sharing model that they were to drum up, and obviously we don't have the details on that because the discussions are still pretty preliminary. Like, how would that ultimately appease the concerns of Florida State and Clemson? Would it be to the degree that they deem necessary in order to feel comfortable staying within the conference? I don't know. Obviously, I don't have the access to those numbers, and I haven't done the math. But
at the end of the day, you're talking about a $30 million gap.
Yeah,
that you're trying to fill. Personally, I don't see where that's feasible. Whether you generate a new source of revenue or not, I don't know how you get close to that number, or close enough to that number where Clemson and Florida State would be like, okay, we'll stay,
Yeah. And that's going to be the difficult thing. And until we know more, because again, these talks have been preliminary. Nothing's been official. They're just kind of exploring options right now and seeing what can be done. And so if they do strike a deal, we'll have more details. But till then, I'm kind of skeptical. And, I think this is more of a kind of just, well, if we don't have to go through months and months and months of litigation and court dates and all that, then let's see if we can do that. But other than that, I don't really see it. It would take something unforeseen, I would think, for them to have some sort of feasible deal put in place that would, be beneficial. So we'll see.
I agree. And not to mention that whatever deal they do come up with has to get a 2/3 votes by the rest of the conference members as well. And, those conference members probably aren't very highly motivated to forfeit some of their cash and throw it into Clemson and FSU's pocket just to keep them within the ACC. Again, I could be wrong. They could strike a deal and the other conference members are on board and, these lawsuits kind of go away. I don't see that happening. I think everything is so public at this point with the lawsuits and the back and forth and the kind of the journey that it's gone on this summer. I just think there's a place of no return, and I think we've already passed that place for both Clemson and Florida State. Maybe there's somewhat of a deal that's struck to temporarily keep them in, maybe to that 2027 date. Maybe they move the grant of rights to that 2027 date, and maybe you could see Clemson and Florida State stick it out for that amount of time. I guess that's in the realm of possibility, but outside of that, I don't know. I don't see there being any long-term solution for the ACC to keep both institutions in the conference.
Yeah, I'm with you.